You're live.
Good afternoon
Thank
and
you.
welcome to the 2:30 p.m. Public Works Committee meeting. Agenda item number 1, call to order. Agenda item number 2, Jamila Stuckey. Is Jamila here?
She is on her way.
Okay, we'll push her. Steve King.
Here.
Are you here? All right.
I'm here.
Come on up to the table. Reappointment to the Sales Tax Overview Committee. Term expires December 31st, 2028. Attended 9 of 12 meetings representing Council District 8. Good afternoon.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good.
All right, just tell us a little bit about yourself and why you would like to continue to serve on the Sales Tax Overview Committee.
Well, you already know my name.
I do.
My wife and I have lived here in Tulsa about 25 years, all been in District 8. I first joined the STOC because I wanted to understand more about how the city works. And that's the good news. The bad news is I know how it works. Some days
And you still want to serve.
Some days it's frustrating, but overall, it's a good process. Okay? And I'd like to continue because it does have value to the city.
Yes.
It's it's a checks and balances type thing.
Mhm. Well, thank you for your willingness to serve, and that is a very good committee to learn how the city works, to serve on. So again, thank you for your service. Any other questions or comments? Councilman?
Thank you for wanting to continue to serve, and appreciate your attendance and being there. I think that this committee specifically is vitally important to our community as a whole. So that if anybody has any questions about any project or anything that's going on in the city, you are the ones that are out there helping feed that information to the public.
Correct.
So
Well, thank you.
yeah, I appreciate it.
Council?
Yes, I want to echo that same sentiment. I'm approached many times, people who have questions, why do we spend money here, or what is the process like? And I can't tell you how many times I've said Sales Tax Overview Committee, because you all see what's really going on. And if someone truly wants to know how the process works, your committee is step number 1. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. One of the interesting things that I found out about right off the bat was, because we only meet for these 1 hour for subcommittees, 1 hour for the in-person meeting, it probably took me close to a year before I felt comfortable that I had a handle on what was going on and where and when. So the 3-year appointments I think are a minimum.
All right, any other questions or comments? All right, well, thank you. We will be voting on your appointment on the 26th, so in 2 weeks, at our 5 o'clock meeting. You're welcome to attend if you would like to, but you don't have to.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Going to go back up to agenda item number 2, Jamila Stuckey. Come on up to the table. Reappointment to the Greater Tulsa Area African American Affairs Commission. Term expires May 1st, 2028. Attended 7 of 10 meetings, representing or living in Council District 1. Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Absolutely great. Thank you for being here. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and why you would like to continue to serve on the African American Affairs Commission.
So, as was already stated, as you know, I am Jamila Stuckey. I'm originally from Los Angeles, California. I've been in Tulsa for 6.5 years. My background is varied. So my undergrad degree is in finance and accounting. So I lived in Florida, Tallahassee to be exact. Family, woo-woo. And then I kind of worked in the corporate space at Bank of America for some time, and then I decided to go into education because I saw a need in my community. So I moved back to LA from Chicago at the time, working with Bank of America, and became an AmeriCorps Vista. And if you ask my dad, he was like, "She's not making no money. She volunteering. I don't know why she playing," because it was like very minimal monies, but I loved it, and I loved the work that I was doing, and it was really fruitful. And so I stayed in that. Then I went back to school to get more education about education, because as I said, my degree was finance and accounting. So I got my MBA and I got my master's in teaching in California, started there. So I taught secondary for some time, did a principalship, and then I got accepted into a fellowship that brought me to Tulsa, Oklahoma. So I worked for the Opportunity Project here, where I did social and emotional learning for some time. And because I took that and I moved here, I could not clear my credential in California. So instead of keeping my master's in teaching, I switched from master's to master's in ed. California has way too many requirements about what you have to do to become a teacher and remain a teacher in California as a certified individual. And so I've been doing that for some time. I am also a member of different things. I led the diversity crew with Type Rose, so I was in Type Rose for a long time. And so I kind of do some different things within Tulsa, and I really love my experience here. I do live downtown. I've been here for 6 years, and I'm excited about it. So I would like to address the other question, stay within the African American Affairs Commission for a multitude of reasons. Obviously, I identify as African American. Let me not say obvious. I identify as African American. So there's the first thing. Right, well, let's not say obvious, but the second piece is that the work that we are doing is really crucial and critical. And under the leadership of Dr. Dickens, we have made strides. I am the chair of the Education Committee, and so myself and, as I like to call her affectionately, Mama Love, Margaret Love, are leading that space, and we've done a lot of things in that space, and so I would like to continue that work. I believe that it's important and it's critical and crucial to not just the movement and thriving of the African American community, but the moving and thriving of Tulsa in general, right, as a lovely city to live, work, and play. Thank you.
Thank you for your willingness to serve. Councilman Bellis.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
As a former teacher, I'm always happy to see teachers right intersectionally in these spaces because it's such an important perspective to bring. And then I was curious, especially since you've been serving on the commission, and if this is putting you on the spot, you could be like, I'll chew on that and get back to you all. But if there were any either things that you're like, hey, I do think our city council should be aware of this that's happening in the community, or that you're like, this is a policy gap, or some type of, could be a little P policy practice gap, but just something the city could be doing to support, whether it's education or other things from your perspective.
Yes, lovely question. Thank you for that, Laura Bellis, right?
Yeah.
Yes, we worked in the Sun Building together.
Yes.
And so the one thing that we're working on as a committee is creating and writing op-eds, specifically focused on chronic absenteeism and how they impact different sections and grade levels. And not just writing about the problem, we understand it's a problem, but how can we develop solutions together, right? So that we can continue to move forward. And so what do some of those pieces and things look like? That's one thing that we're working on. And then another thing we're working on is reading literacy, right? How do we help and assist that, especially for the schools who can't afford things like reading partners and things of that nature? So how can we, as the committee and the commission, support that? So that's another initiative that we're doing and working on, and creating like a resource guide for parents and families. These are things you can do at the dinner table. These are things you can do at home. And so those types of things are two of the main things that I think that we're working on, and I don't know if you all are aware of that.
That was really good
That's
to learn
awesome.
about. Thank you, that's super helpful. Well, and let us know if there's something where you're like, if there's, you know, if you all as you're working on that or seeking out or have any suggestions where you're like, hey, it would be really helpful if the city supported this in this way. I'm not gonna pretend we have like tons of money to throw around, unfortunately, but if there are other things or community partnerships that we can help support establishing that would elevate that, please let us know.
Yes, I will. I'm happy you said money, so we were reaching out for sure. But the other thing that we're doing is we have a Dr. Laverne Wimberly
Oh, she's the best.
award. Isn't she amazing?
Yeah.
And so we named our Educator of the Year award after her. So we had our first one. So we'll have a second one this year as well. And we try to award individuals from elementary, middle school, high school, and then secondary as well, that we have seen do outstanding work. And so we had that last year. We plan to have it this year and every year moving forward. So, thank you.
Councilor Hardy.
Ms. Stuckey, it's a pleasure to get to meet you and just to double click on what Councilor Bellis is saying, as a former educator, there does need to be a closer connection between what's happening at the city and with the schools, because we're affected, of course, by the educational outcomes. You grew up in Chicago? Or
No, I grew up in Los Angeles, California. I lived in Chicago, I lived in Florida, I lived in Maryland and DC.
what side of Chicago?
Oh, I was like Greektown, West Loop, UIC Hofstad off the Blue Line.
Okay.
Yep.
I was on 97th and Vincennes.
Okay.
And so, did you go to Portillo's often?
Okay, no, don't judge me. Okay, we listen, we don't judge. So, I went to Portillo's, okay,
Yes.
and they basically disrespected me because I don't like the meat. I don't like it.
Oh, okay.
And they were like, "Where are you from?" I was like, "California," and the whole staff said, "Oh." I was like, "What is that supposed to mean?" But yeah, no, Portillo's is not my best.
I was not.
Giordano's though, or
Very good.
Illuminati's.
Yeah, let me see.
Yeah, those are my favorites.
Well, I love it. I love it. Well, that's wonderful. A pleasure to meet you, and I'm rooting for you.
Thank
For
you.
sure. Thank you.
All right. So we will be voting on your appointment also on March 26th
Yes.
at our 5 o'clock meeting, and you're welcome to attend, but you don't have to.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. You need
Thank
something?
you.
Thank you.
Oh, I thought you were trying to get my attention, Sarah. Okay, agenda item number 4. Ordinance closing a utility easement requested by Mark Caprone, Wallace Design Collective for property located at 909 West 23rd Street, lots 6 through 13, block 40 of the amended West Tulsa addition. The easement closure request is for future development located in Council District 2.
Good afternoon, Councilors. Matt Lolte, Public Works Engineering. Before you is an ordinance to close the utility easement over by the West Tulsa Y that's being constructed. There was a sanitary sewer line in the easement that has been abandoned, and we would ask that you go ahead and approve this easement closure.
Questions or comments? Thank you. Agenda
here
item
for a
number
while.
5. You'll be here for a minute, okay?
Yeah, 5 to 9 all go together.
All right. Agenda item number 5.
Should we read them all together?
Are they all together, or they're different?
It's all.
It's all one thing, basically. You can read
Oh,
them
one
together.
property? Okay,
Yes.
so I can read them all?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, agenda item number 5, ordinance closing a utility easement requested by Attorney William L. Eagleton, Trey Walker, PC, on behalf of Board of Regents for the Oklahoma Agricultural and Mechanical College. The property located at 440 South Houston Avenue, Lot 7, Block 127 of original town site. The easement closure request is for future expansion of the VA hospital. Ordinance closing a portion of public way requested by Attorney William L. Eagleton, Trey Walker, PC, on behalf of Board of Regents for the Oklahoma Agricultural and Mechanical College for property located at 440 South Houston Avenue, Lot 3, Block 156 of original town site. The public way closure request is for future expansion of the VA hospital. District 4, ordinance closing a portion of an alleyway requested by Attorney William L. W.L. Eagleton, Trey Walker, PC, on behalf of Board of Regents of the Oklahoma Agricultural and Mechanical College for property located at 440 South Houston Avenue, Lot 7, Block 127 of original town site. The alleyway closure request is for future expansion of the VA hospital. Ordinance closing a portion of a utility easement requested by Attorney William L. Eagleton, Trey Walker, PC, on behalf of Board of Regents for the Oklahoma Agricultural and Mechanical College for property located at 440 South Houston Avenue, lots 4 and 5, and lots 9 through 10, block 128 of original town site. The easement closure request is for future expansion of the VA hospital. And item 9, ordinance closing a portion of a utility easement requested by Attorney William L. Eagleton, Trey Walker, PC, on behalf of Board of Regents for the Oklahoma Agricultural and Mechanical College for property located at 440 South Houston Avenue. The easement closure request is for future expansion of the VA hospital.
Okay, so before you have these items for the VA hospital, there are miscellaneous alleyways and easements and right-of-way that need to be closed. There has been IDP work done and other utilities have been engaged to move out of those easements, and so that work is complete. However, it should be noted, so let me tell a story.
Yeah, this
So
was
the-
retroactive.
So the VA hospital, there's a federal agreement, I guess, is going on in that they have to give them a clear site in order to enter into that agreement. And so the city, being this is a major investment in Tulsa, very important to Tulsa, we have been working with them to try to solve this problem. So we have written these RFAs, we passed them forward so they make it to our legal department, and we were going to intercept 2 of them before they ended up on council agenda. It has now been determined, because of the short time frame they have in order to enter into that agreement, we've allowed them to come to here. So on these RFAs, it says that those IDPs are complete. And I don't want to get a $100 fine for lying to council, so they are not complete on item 6 and item 9. So as part of this
What would
process,
happen if you lied to council though? I was trying to figure it
it's a
out.
$100 fine.
Yeah, it's actually like, and that includes to each other
Only
too.
100?
Yeah, that's my understanding. I defer to my
It's a small
attorney.
price to pay to just go wild.
There is an
So-
ordinance scrolling to
Let me finish real quick. Okay, so, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
Squirrel.
You should just bring $100.
Counselor?
It's like a square
Let me
jar.
tell you a story. So, so they will make it through this process. These RFAs say the IDP is complete. After this is done, in order for these to become permanently closed, they will have to go to district court and sue us. And so that will be our last chance to say that, hey, these IDPs were never done. And they're actively being constructed, they're getting through the testing process. We have no reason to believe they will not be finished. It's just always been our practice to not get it to this stage until that work is complete. And we'd like to continue with that practice because it's what we tell all our applicants is you do your part and we'll do our part. Because we end up getting these sometimes months in advance of when you see them because we're holding them, waiting for them to finish their work. So,
Counselor Willis?
So just quick clarifying question, because obviously it sounds like there's a time sensitivity to make sure that other dollars can come through. Is the time sensitivity, just to make sure I understood, on us passing these, like should these have an emergency clause on them?
So we talked about that briefly, and so if we can, there's a 30-day window in which they become effective, but that should not keep them, and I asked to defer to the judge down
Okay.
there, filing in district court, right?
Okay.
So and I don't know how long it'll take them to get a seat with a judge to actually go through it, so they can run concurrently, I believe. So
Okay.
we should be okay.
Just checking, as long as that's, I just wanted to make sure.
We
'cause
can
I've-
make that change if you want to. It's not something that we did it a month ago for the first time in the 10 years I've been doing this job. I know
Okay.
we had a short time frame in order to do, but that was not the request here. These be on
As long as we don't
clause.
have other like federal stability concerns for dollars coming through / contracts coming through for the project, then that's why part of me almost, I'm just saying to my colleagues, wants to expedite it just to make sure that we're.
I can clarify.
Come on up.
Yeah, could you?
I'm sorry.
That's
You
okay.
could have
No,
spoke
no,
to
no.
all of this.
No, I just
I'm
wanted-
trying my best.
No, no, thank you. No,
Do I
thanks.
need to $100?
I would appreciate additional context, just because I just want to make sure that we get the whole thing built and everything, that any barrier we could remove here is out of the way so we can get this facility online.
Yeah, so I'm here representing Veterans Hospital in Tulsa, which is a developer entity created by the Zara Foundation.
And
So-
your name is?
Jeff Hall, I
Thank
think
you.
you should have started there. There's $100.
It's not really Jeff Hall?
So we do appreciate what Public Works has done. The work is, I mean, in fact, it's a little bit more, as is any utility work, complicated. One of the last things that's yet to be done involves us shutting off water to the Arvest Convention Center. And so that's taken a little bit more coordination, and the time we're up against does really impact the judicial vacation, which is typically a 60 to 75-day clock. And with the uncertainty, to put it plainly, with the federal government, if we don't turn over the building, which means clean title, and everything is complete by September, there's not a clear picture on when that can happen. And as a local entity, we want the federal government to have the building as quickly as possible. And so we're having to back into that time frame. And so what we ran up against up to about 2 weeks ago, where we started engaging with Public Works and then eventually others, is was there any path to which we could recognize the work is happening and we'll complete frankly within the next 2 weeks, but wouldn't make us wait to start this process for you all to then heel toe it with district court.
Okay.
So that's where we are. The work is happening. We're not trying to waive any work that's happening,
No,
but we
no.
are faced with the time frame that, especially
Right.
right now, is more uncertain than it was in the past.
So to double, triple check though, because this is up for first reading, our next council meeting, we don't have one next week, it's not till the 26th. Is there a need to try to expedite this to just that, I'm just curious what the timelines, I understand that you can concurrently file things with court and, some of that could play out concurrently. I just wanted to check though if that's something where you're like, it would actually be better to get this squared away as soon as possible. Are you okay with it?
We would welcome that, but the 26th was our drop dead. And so as long
Okay.
as we don't miss the 26th,
That's your drop
we're
dead.
Just
Okay.
approve it on first reading.
We could waive rules
Waive
and approve it
council
on
rules.
first, there's mechanisms to do it tonight if that's, because if you're saying that's drop dead and would it change anything or help you do something faster if we did this tonight?
You may push up when we can file with district court. by
Well,
the
that
week
seems
or
like a
two.
good thing.
He'll push it up by 2 weeks.
Right.
Yeah, I think that doesn't seem, okay. I'm
This
just throwing that out there to colleagues, yeah.
So, Councilor Lake.
Is there any controversy? Is there any, there's no neighbors, there's no nobody who's going to be,
This is a fully closed off construction site.
Right, in fact, if it weren't for us having to shut off the water to the convention center due to having to replace and abandon one of the pipes,
Yeah.
we wouldn't be impacting anybody other than the random street closures.
But this will,
Right.
given their schedule.
yeah,
I just want them to be able to file faster.
well,
Well,
Yeah.
September 1 is like looming.
Yeah, and we're just assuming that the federal government won't move super quick on this, and so we just need
That's
to
a
get it
good
there as
assumption.
quickly as we can.
yeah, I'd be fine
I'm fine.
hearing it on first
Okay.
reading, hearing
We
Yeah, I
can
think-
discuss it in the 5 o'clock
Yeah,
meeting.
not-
and see.
Or 4
We do
yeah.
defer, I just really appreciate what Public Works has done to expedite to get to this
Yeah.
point, so.
Yeah, thanks, this looked like really fun to sort through all the different things on that very large chunk of land.
The mayor's office helped also, they signed this off agenda in order to make it to this council meeting today.
Oh, great.
So,
Okay, well then we'll move
So
fast
there's
too.
an acceleration.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
without
Thank
any
you.
objections.
All right. Agenda item number 10, license agreement between the City of Tulsa and Brett R. Goodwin and Carolyn M. Cottle for property located at 2235 East 25th Street, Wildwood Addition, for installation of a curb and gutter in Council District 4.
So this 25th Street is a street that does not have curb and gutter. It was what we call a Bardage Street. However, they have built a new driveway at this location and carried a curb across the face of their property in an effort not to have to reconstruct the street for the portion in front of their house to meet the IDP requirements. They've asked that they can place this curb. It has been reviewed by different boards, commissions, authorities, and private utilities with no objections, and we would recommend that you guys approve this license agreement.
Any questions or comments? Is this a residence?
Yes.
Or business? Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you. Agenda item number 11, license agreement between the City of Tulsa and Timothy J. Toole and Brittany J. Radcliffe for property located at 2140 East 30th Street, Forest Hills Addition, for installation of a colored concrete apron within the street right-of-way in Council District 4. Your district is doing stuff.
Everyone wants, apparently everyone's supposed to paint their driveway. Oh, it is a big house, so. I'm just sorry, I just
So,
wanted to look, hold it up.
The city's also standard driveway is your standard white gray concrete. They have come in and asked that they can tent their concrete, tent their driveway. We have reviewed this and have no objections to it, and we recommend you approve this license agreement.
And this is a private residence?
Yes.
And you have to do this?
Yeah, they
Yes,
do it
so,
'cause they're doing something out of the
basically this
norm.
is saying that if the city comes back later, or ONG or PSO or whoever,
And
tears out your, dig out your
the right way.
driveway,
They're not putting
if
it
you
in.
wanna put it back in the colored driveway, you get to do it. If
Yeah.
not, the city will likely put it back in as we go by, right?
As
So,
a
Yeah.
My whole neighborhood has had to do this.
historical, yeah.
yeah, and so the last council session, Councilor Q had asked us to reduce the fee for this, and we have reduced the fee.
What
to
is
make
the
it-
fee?
I think it's $500. So it's a standard license. Well, no, it's $250 for a driveway, for a residential.
So have we had an incident where the city has to come back and dig it up?
Yeah, yes, it's a
Sure.
common occurrence
And
for
they have to
this.
replace it themselves,
Not
their own
necessarily
cost if
on
they
the,
want to?
yeah, it's not a common occurrence for these driveways, because we just started licensing them, but it has
Right.
been, it's a common occurrence that this has happened when we don't have licenses, and then we get in a discussion with them about the fact
Yeah,
that
and
that's
they're ready to
yours.
sue us.
It's being done in my neighborhood.
Yes.
Currently, they're tearing up driveways, so.
By the way, this Zillow pictures of this house are lovely.
What?
Dinosaur.
What's that?
All right,
They're in the right of way, yes.
agenda item 12, discussion with representatives from the Public Works Department regarding abandoned or unused facilities in the rights of ways, including a summary of current regulations and operating and technical considerations for those regulations.
So,
Stand with us?
I am. American Concrete Pavement Association is giving the city of Tulsa an award for the Yale widening from 81 to 91, so I am Public
feel
Works Street
acting
guy
surprised.
today.
Like he had something to do with it.
Is this surprising to you?
Standing
Not the
tall.
concrete.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Bill.
It had nothing to do with
Bill
me.
needs a golden
Engineering and the contractor.
award.
Okay, so, I watched the discussion you guys have with Mr. Brierly. I really don't know what I can add, but I'm willing to have any conversation you want. So I brought with me basically excerpts from the franchise agreements along with the right-of-way occupancy ordinance. And, I
Just
think.
for those of us who are slow to catch on, are you talking about abandoned facilities under the group?
Yes, so at a
Okay.
5 o'clock meeting
Just making
last
sure.
month, I think. it was
Yeah,
with
that
Mr.
one that came up
with
was
Mr.
unbelievable.
Briley and.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So,
There's an appeal.
yes, to the hazmat, yes. So, and I think At that meeting, Jack looked up the ONG franchise, and it very clearly says that things above grade have to be removed, but things below grade do not, right?
What does it mean, above grade, below grade?
So if it's visible to the eye, if you can see it, it's above grade, right? If it's underground, it doesn't have to be removed.
Which this man had the gas line.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
Like,
so,
he had to
so
remove it.
we're gonna get to
So you
that.
can just, okay, go
Okay,
ahead.
so on the PSO franchise
He's gonna
agreement.
tell us another
He's got
story.
a story to tell.
No.
Hold on, I'm actually just noting, I just got a message from a constituent, there's a water line being replaced today across the street from my home, and they hit a gas line while doing it, and the ONG guy said that they hadn't marked any gas lines for that project.
They hadn't?
Yes,
Or
had not.
Oh.
So I'm just
don't
reading, I'm
know
reading
if
this,
they're
I just got,
there.
I just got this
Let's let
message
Mr.
11
Lipsy
minutes
give
ago.
us an update on all of it.
Anyway, just
That he's
naming
trying
everyone.
desperately to do.
That's okay. So, the PSO franchise agreement just says that after a certain point in time that they have to remove them. It doesn't say, isn't clear on whether it's above grade or below grade. As a general rule, it has been seen as above grade. I mean, it is a common practice for stuff to be left in the ground.
It is?
Yes. So on the right of occupancy, the PSO franchise agreement, LNG agreement, franchise agreement are obviously there are 15 and 25-year terms. And so we can't change them. The right of occupancy management agreement or ordinance is something you guys could change, anytime you really
The
wanted to.
state could change it though, right?
They could, so we'll talk about that for a minute or two. Okay, so basically the right of occupancy also says removal, but it doesn't say if above or below, it's not clear on that, but it's basically understood to be above grade. The city of Tulsa, when we do work, if it is like a large storm sewer and it's under the pavement, we will go in and we'll knock the top in and maybe fill it full, we'll fill, or if we're doing the work in the area, we'll just take it out and remove it. But there's an expense for these utility companies and anybody else to remove these.
Huge.
Yeah, to remove it after the fact. In addition to that, with the stormwater work, it is easier for us because you can manage stormwater in different ways. Whereas if I'm running sewer to your house or taking sewer from your house or running water to your house, I have to keep that line 100% active. The gas line has to stay 100% active until all the services are changed. And then you're gonna ask them to go back and dig through everybody's front yard again, taking out that pipe. You also have the situation where in order, like AT&T's going around putting fiber in all over town, right? And they're boring all of that to minimize the amount of disruption in people's yards, which I'm sure people appreciate. They're already.
There's
not-
still disruption.
Oh, yeah, they're still not happy with it, right? But it could be a whole lot worse. Yeah, they did in my yard. But if you
have to dig it out.
if you had to dig it out afterwards, they'd be in
One
your
thing
backyard.
is inserting.
Right, you'd be in the backyard digging out the old copper line, and then you have the new fiber line, and at least my neighborhood went in the front yard.
Right.
Yeah.
And so there's an added expense, an added inconvenience to the citizens, there is the whole, you gotta keep it in service, and then, it's just difficult to do. And so, as a general rule, it's been a matter of practice, I think, all over the state probably, that you leave things in the ground, there's just stuff in the ground. So then there was discussion also that night about knowing where their lines are. So I thought I would bring, this is the City of Tulsa's Atlas page. We have a digital atlas and a GIS system, but if you were to pull the page,
Get big paper from this department.
yes, that's what we do. And you can't read what I brought you because it's not big enough, right? So the actual atlases are 36 by 24. This is what is in our trucks when they go around and they can find it. So the line on this paper is 10 feet wide. I mean, so to say that that line is right there, where is right there? I can tell you it's on the south side of the street or the east side of the street, but I could not with any certainty tell you where it is. So to alleviate some of that, we have record drawings, but we don't have record drawings for everything. And we
You have
work-
what?
Record drawings. Basically, we take once the construction is complete, they go back to our engineer to verify that all the field changes and hand notes were taken on the plans are transferred onto a archivable piece of Mylar, and then we save those and we scan them in and they become record drawings, such that future generations can pull them back out and look and say, okay, that's where that was placed. But we don't have record drawings for everything. There are cracks, sometimes, even in my career, I'm sure there's some record drawings that never made it all the way through. They go back to the engineer, or they go back, because a lot of this work is done by IDP contracts or development service contracts, and if they're a one and done shop, they come to town one time and they're like, I just did this for Home Depot because I do Home Depot all over the country, and now you're asking me to give you record drawings. We may never get them. They may just like, well, I don't care. They walk away, right? They pay the fine and they move on their way. It's cheaper for them, whatever it is. So there are places where I'm not saying Home Depot, we don't have record drawings, which is an example of a nationwide company. So there are locations we don't have record drawings, and so we have locators, and they go out there, electric and communication is easier to locate than it is to locate water and gas. Just from the standpoint, you can click onto the signal and send a signal down that wire. It's not as easy to do. We have tracer wires on our PVC pipe, but, you know, they just don't work as well, and they don't work as well. So, all that to be said, I can tell you where my line is, but that's why the 811 system allows you to have that buffer, to go in and paint and say that, hey, this is where we believe the line is, this is where we got a reading in the field. But we have a margin of error. And errors are made from time to time, so. I'm not really sure what the discussion is to be this afternoon, but that's what I know.
That margin of error is
Well,
like
fines.
24 inches, right?
Yeah, it's, yes, 2 feet
Did
either
you
side
hear
of
what
the
you
mark.
said?
I think it's,
That margin
I think
of
it's,
error
I
was
think it's,
the
I think it's,
24
I think it's
inches.
2 feet either side of the mark.
Yeah.
So 48 inches, right?
Yeah.
So,
So we just need to accept the situation like what we had last month, that that's just going to happen.
so
So because they can leave
They-
junk in the unused.
So that's the discussion, as I watched Mr. Brierly, he was talking about it was mismarked, and it could have been mismarked. I don't know, without that history, I don't know. If it was mismarked, then that ownership of paying that bill probably should have been on ONG, right?
You couldn't get anywhere with ONG, yeah.
Huh? Right. So, I'm sorry, Counselor, your question, yeah, we, basically, yes. So if you were digging and you find a line in that marked area, that doesn't give you clearance to free dig everywhere else. You still have to verify through that space. I mean, we're only talking, if it's a lateral or a perpendicular crossing, that's a very short distance to hand dig, or to dig carefully, so. Just the two lines are side by side, it happens, it can happen. It could have easily been an AT&T line, it could have been something else that he found, it doesn't, no necessary, I mean, if he found the yellow poly pipe, then yeah, he found the gas line, but if he, depending on the era in which that line was installed, it could have been a steel pipe. And that could be many things, not just the ONG poly pipe.
Councilor Layton?
I think one thing that he said, and I don't know if it had to do with this specific instance or not, but he said they'll look, they'll dig where they're supposed to dig, they'll find the line, but it's the abandoned line. So they think that they found the line, so then they're, digging on the other side of that, but when they start digging on the other side of that, they hit the active line.
Right.
So I don't know how, I totally get the cost related to taking the old lines out, and I would not advocate for that. That just, we have to dispose of that somewhere. I mean, it's already in a place that it'll eventually go away. Some of it, not all of it.
Eventually go
But
away?
just the lines that are, the abandoned lines that are underground, I just think the expense of it.
How will they eventually
Yeah,
go
how will
away?
Oh, some, no, that's why I
The
didn't say
metal-
all.
The metal pipe.
Yeah.
It'll definitely go away.
The poly
Yeah,
pipe.
the
they
poly
keep a long
pipe doesn't,
time.
I mean, it'll go away, but it'll be
Take 1,000
many,
years.
many,
Just
essentially
essentially
what
what
it
it
meant.
in the landfill, it's the same time it's gonna take for it to decay.
Okay, I hear what you're saying. So-
Yeah, yeah.
I think the concern though is the active gas lines, right?
Yeah, so is there any way that we can, we can't change the franchise agreements, and I'm not pushing to change the franchise agreements. But, yeah, we can, but I wouldn't make any changes because I really don't believe that having them pull the lines is the right thing to do. It costs us all money. And like you said, it ends up in the landfill or it just stays where it is. I'm just trying to figure out how we cause somebody who's digging to verify that what they found is active or dead before they continue on.
From a
Can you
business
tell?
risk model, right?
Yeah.
They have 2 feet that they have to clear by hand digging.
Yeah.
And so just because you found something doesn't mean that you found it. You found something, right? So
Okay.
let's hand dig through the window that we have to hand dig and move on. He
2
took-
feet on either side?
I'd have to go look at the 811.
Okay.
This is not my thing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Used to be a long time ago, but it's been a long while. But you dig through that and that business risk, you decide to hand dig it, that takes more time, but you can't assume because you found something that you're done.
Okay.
You get through that window and you get to the other side, and then you start using the machine dig again, and, nobody wants an accident, but if you hit something outside of the marked window, then that liability is not on you, it is on either the marking company or the utility company that had the line mismarked.
Okay.
So he took he took a business risk. When he
Yeah.
found something, he said, hey, that's it.
That's it.
And he started digging, right, with a machine. And he found something else.
When these things go in, there's, I know that there's a method to it, but is ONG going to put theirs they're just gonna put their stuff underground. It's not like they're gonna stack it on top of where they already were right next to it, right? Because
So-
they don't really know in the grand scheme of things.
Well,
They'll know close
they
to.
know, right, I mean, yeah, so
Yeah.
they have to get a permit, they have to go through the corridor, there has to be a discussion about where it is. If you look in the IDP manual, there's a showing of the locations of, in the brand-new neighborhood, the distance in which each utility company is supposed to be off the easement line, right? This first 7 feet is sewer, this is them, this
Yeah.
is so on and so forth.
Okay.
But when you go into a rebuild, now you're looking in there and going, where can I find my corridor? You do some engineering, you call in locates and ask for the other utility companies to come out and mark them, and then you pick where you go. An ONG can't go back in the same trench because that line's hot, right? So they have to find a window to fit in over one way or the other to.
Yeah, okay. Okay. And just following up on that one thing, there are some companies that, like, if they're replacing water lines with HDPE on the old metal pipes, they have a machine that goes through and busts up the metal piece as they're pulling together the HDPE.
No, we do pipe bursting, that's correct, yes.
Yeah.
The city Tulsa does pipe bursting, both
Yeah.
with cast iron and with HDPE.
Yeah,
That
so
is-
there's ways of increasing or decreasing the life of that stuff that stays underground.
Yeah.
When you bust it up, it's gonna rust and erode more quickly.
So as a general rule.
And you're going right back in the same
Right.
space
And
too.
we typically use that pipe bursting on sanitary sewer because the fact that we have the ability to put a pump in one manhole, lay things around and pump to the next manhole, and the time it takes to do a pipe burst, you typically will not end up filling up the lateral line and causing a problem in the house. So you've got it all prepped and
Gotcha.
ready to go, right? But you can't say, hey, I'm gonna turn your water off for 48 hours and pipe burst, and you can't tell them in the winter, I'm gonna turn your gas off, or anytime, right? You wanna have them take a shower, so you're gonna have to have gas every day.
Yeah.
Short windows of time you can turn the gas off.
Okay.
Councilor Fellows?
This might be a question for city legal, I'm not sure, but I'm trying to think through. You're like, let me get out of the way of whatever that is. No, I'm trying to think through, because I remember in that conversation at that 5 o'clock meeting, there were some real complexities to if someone hits something, right, who had liability, and it seemed a bit circuitous from my recollection, that I don't remember all the nuances. From what's just been shared with us about a certain level of responsibility, but then if it's unmarked, it's unmarked. I just wanted to clarify with you, Jack, could you like rehash a little for us what that policy is, just so we understand like whose responsibility lies with where? Because I remember thinking during that 5 o'clock, I don't know if I was the only one, that I remember feeling that it ended up seeming strange about where it's our policy, and I can't remember if it was encoded with us or the franchise agreement or both, about where that liability ended up. That was just kind of perplexing, so I was trying to understand.
Well, I don't think the franchise agreement really
Okay.
allocates liability. That's more of a very fact-specific
Right.
question relating to, are you on notice of an issue? Were you negligent in how you addressed the issue? I mean, it's very fact-specific. The franchise really talks about responsibilities within the right-of-way. So ONG, for example, they have responsibility to remove abandoned facilities, as Matt was talking about. And we have an opportunity to come in if they don't and remove them at our cost and then send them the bill. But there's so many factors in that in terms of, we don't want to remove a gas line if we're not sure what we're dealing with. And we would rely on the same companies to do the work that they would, and they have the same backlog. So yeah, it's very complex, but the liability question is just very fact-specific.
Okay.
And he is correct, it's fact-specific, but to give you some generalities, you have to call in a locate, right? And it's 48 hours in advance. And then once they're located, you've got to renew that ticket and call it back in again, or use the computer system to turn it back in. And then it's also upon the contractor to maintain those marks, right? So once they're marked, the contractor has to continue to go out and mark that same spot so they stay fresh and they're still valid, so.
But then in this circumstance, and depending on if someone really did,
So there's a
didn't
window,
mark,
right, if you did mark or if you missed the window, is where the facts come in and the liability falls.
Okay.
And you heard the appellant talk about, that they'll get the mark and they'll talk to ONG, but they won't notify them of every detail of, the number of lines and what you're active and inactive. And And that was kind of and I think they're hedging their potential for liability by doing that, or they think they are anyway, so.
Okay, that was kind of like
And
curiosity.
the state guidelines say it's a 24-inch window, as you say, and they suggest hand digging. So if you're doing everything that the state guidelines provide, I think you're doing as much as you can to hedge that liability.
Okay, thanks, that's helpful. Since we're gonna leave everything in there.
Counselor Archie?
I think my questions were answered, but IDP?
Infrastructure Development Permit.
Okay.
It used to be called PFPIs. It's basically a privately financed public improvement. So a lot of the infrastructure that's built for the city of Tulsa is built by private companies and then donated to the city.
Oh, okay.
So,
Counselor Bingle?
I like that clarity in the question that Counselor Lakin asked is, and the fact that you created some context for me about just because you found that line doesn't mean you're done. Because I would have thought that, you know, when you put in a new line, you would put it either in parallel or like Counselor Lakin implied, either above or below that, because they bore those in, right?
they can. It depends.
Is that standard?
For small diameter line, ONG is boring most of their stuff, yes.
Okay.
But as the lines get larger, they have to open dig.
So when they put the new line in, is it standard practice to put it in parallel, or how far down do those lines
Like
go?
that, I don't know. I don't know.
Okay, I was just kind of curious about how that worked.
I mean, they can go significantly deep, and they have been, that deep, but they're hard to maintain, right? If you bore something 12 feet deep, that's a long ways to dig down to fix, if you gotta fix it
Yeah,
later.
but the thing that I kind of keyed on was the hand dig.
Right.
So you may have found it, you potentially may have mitigated your risk by hand digging versus using the
Yeah, 100%,
trenching tool,
yes, no.
obviously.
Yeah, it's a business decision. If they find something and then they decide to go back to the mechanical equipment, they're at risk.
So I appreciate the clarity.
Is the hand digging required?
I believe it is. I think he read that. It's
Well, I was reviewing the statute last time it came up. I think it's strongly recommended.
Recommended, but it's not required.
It's not required.
Is that something that we would have purview over, or no?
So the risk is upon the contractor
Sure.
to use the proper methods, right? If you tell them this is how it's done and he hand digs it and he breaks it, well, I follow the rules. It's not my fault, that's the city's fault. So I would be
You're
reluctant.
transferring liability.
I'd be reluctant to say this is how it has to be done.
Sure.
Right? And that may
Because
be
I'm
why it
just
says we
more
highly
worried about-
recommend you hand dig.
I think what came before us was then the hazmat mitigation piece of it, and that's really where my brain is going. Like, it is a public safety issue if it's not done with the
Correctly.
most precaution. Or you're willing to take on more risk, but the risk is not really yours to take beyond, I mean, as a business, yes, but like, what is the risk to the community? Especially when it's gas line, so.
I would agree. Roto-Rooter does do a lot of work there, right? Often has
Yeah.
to get something, so.
Yeah, it's his
Yeah.
first time before us.
We have a fireman here. If you have some insight
He's
on it.
next.
Oh, yeah, he's next, but I think you wanted to
Okay.
talk about this.
Sure.
They just sent a bunch of fire trucks over to this gas.
Yeah,
line
that's
bridge
not
that I
Yeah,
just
so
mentioned.
So we probably gonna get
Yeah.
another.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So I'm Matt Fippen, Captain, Hazmat Coordinator for Tulsa Fire Department. It was my
Lead item 13.
recommendation that we,
He's talking about this agenda.
Okay, all right.
it was my recommendation that we bill for that. And when we get a complaint from a customer like that, that has a complaint about the bill, I go and verify with Oklahoma Natural Gas that they were not in compliance. And that's what I told the individual. I apologize, I wasn't able to make the last meeting, I was out of town. However, I went and verified back, and so that individual broke 3 violations of Oklahoma State Statute of 63-142. I have the statute here if you'd like to read it. They had an expired locate ticket when it originally started. You only have a window there where you've got to dig within a certain amount, and they were outside that window. They did not hand dig, which is called potholing, which this gentleman addressed earlier. So they actually did that with a mechanized equipment, which is not legal. And then they used that mechanized equipment, which actually has a picture, which I do not have, but ONG has, of the excavator tooth ripping through ONG's 1 1/4 yellow line. So again, they broke 3 state statutes there.
For future, we should have that information when we
Yeah, he wasn't
deliberate.
here.
Yeah, I humbly apologize, and that's.
No, it's not on, I mean,
No, yeah, I mean,
you could just send that in a memo.
so there are ways, to your point, there are ways to verify that if they are actually
Yes,
complying
ma'am.
with the state statute.
Yes, ma'am.
So
When
we
the
probably
original
shouldn't have
complaint
waited.
came in, I went and talked with O&G to make sure, because, listen, O&G, by the way, billed about $2,000, and that was paid immediately, or pretty close to immediately, and to where they came in
Of the fee.
of the fee.
So
I
they
feel
did
like we
pay.
didn't get all
Yes.
the information.
So we were told that they were just ignoring the situation.
Can we call that back
So
or
it
no?
came to us for
Wasn't ours to
relief.
get, it's ours to hear.
Can't hear down there. What y'all saying?
Oh, we were just talking about, maybe we didn't get all the information, and I said it wasn't ours to get, it was ours to hear.
Correct.
Yeah. So.
Right.
Yeah, this
you
is
know, that has to-
filling out a picture right now.
Yeah, yeah.
We're trying to make informed decisions, so this is good
Yeah, the fire
conversation.
chief, I believe, came and he had legal advice from city legal that we thought it was kind of a done deal because I'd already explained to the customer that, look, I've already done an investigation. Originally, when he called me, I said, let me do an investigation, I'll get back with you. I did an investigation, I got back with him. I told him that O&G says you're at fault, violated, and that's why we bill. And again, our bill is kind of minimal compared to that, and especially O&G's bill. I mean, $2,000, I believe, is what they paid, right around that mark. And imagine the amount of gas they lost with that, way over that cost. So,
What was his
since you guys were
bill?
talking about hazmat, I just wanted to.
Did anybody recall?
It was like 4,500.
It was 4,500, but then he only paid
It's
how much?
40, he paid 500.
Yeah.
He only
It's
paid-
49.50 is the
And we had him pay
bill.
500.
I'd like to ask questions about this bill at some point.
Well, and I.
Hold on, Councilor Bingo, were you finished with
Yeah.
your questions?
Yeah, well, I had one more.
Okay.
So since your name was mentioned over and over and over, and you could make it, we did ask Chief Baker about the marketing of that mitigation fee for hazmat. Are you doing a concerted marketing towards people that do this type of work to educate them and let them know about that fee?
I do not believe that we have any marketing in place. This program was in place before me.
Okay.
And I went back to a secretary that's been here the longest. She's been here since 2013, and that's been in place since she's been there. So I can't really find anybody that knows exactly when that came into play. But no, I don't believe it's been marketing. I actually did some research too. I went to the permits division of the city of Tulsa and asked them if they were putting this out when people gave new permits, and they are not either. And that's something that, kind of discussion in the next one, that I had some recommendations that we could get some,
Oh, okay.
get some things out.
So I may have gotten ahead of you then.
No, that's okay, sir. I want to make sure you get a question up.
Well, you probably should have been up here all along. Are you done, Councilor Bingo?
Yes, thank you.
Councilor Archie and then Councilor Lakin?
So the hand digging is, I thought, Jack said it was optional, but then you said.
Recommended.
Recommended, but then you said that state statute says it's required?
Well, and the statute does say any excavator who damages or cuts an underground facility as a result of negligently failing to comply with the provisions shall be liable to the operator. Failing to comply with the guidelines, I think, is what kind of invokes that liability.
Okay, I think I was a little confused by it. And then also I think another issue was just the bill from the finance department. We were trying to figure out, like the hourly rate versus, I guess the 3 trucks or something like that.
Need to read. Can we read?
If you would read 13,
Go ahead and
you
read
can
13,
take
because
12
now
and
we're moving
13
into the
together.
other. Okay,
and-
sounds good. Agenda item 13, discussion with representatives from the Tulsa Fire Department regarding billing practices for hazmat incidents pursuant to Tulsa Revised Ordinance Title 13, Chapter 4, Hazardous Materials Incident Response. Okay.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, that's the only, when I was considering what was before us, like Councilor Lakin said, it's just kind of what's presented. It was unclear as to, what constituted all of the fees that he was being asked to pay.
Yeah, so when O&G has to be called out for something like that, Tulsa Fire Department responds, and we essentially guard them while they're in a hole. So, because they're in a hole with flammable gases and things like that. We charge $1,800 an hour for that, and then any equipment
much?
cost $1,800.
I remember that number
That-
came
I
up.
remember that.
It's on the
It's on the invoice.
That's actually fairly common across the United States and pretty cheap compared to other departments of the United States. So we also bill back for equipment used, but I don't believe we billed anything on that one, and
So is
How'd
this
you get to that number?
prorated? Yeah, because 3 times 1,800 is 5,400.
Right, I think that was the,
yeah, I guess it was 3 hours.
No, the bill total is $49.50.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have anything to do with billing, all we do is turn that in, and billing goes that, I believe city finance. So there's a possibility that it's overbilled?
No, it's underbilled.
Underbilled, okay, I wasn't aware of that. So, and 1,800, by the way, is whether we send both of our hazmat trucks, which we're dedicated, so we come as a unit, as a team, or whether we've got 20 trucks on scene. It's just kind of a standard fee.
Can we go back to what Jack?
Well, Lakin was
Oh,
next.
sorry.
No, I was just gonna ask about the bill. So if another one of these comes up though, and we don't, nobody knows how this bill is put together, I can't vote with any confidence, for the city. I have to go with the appellant because there's an issue with just the math on this, and I just still don't know, after hearing this, 5 weeks ago or 6 weeks ago, what's happening on the billing. I think we were told that 3 trucks responded. So you're saying it doesn't matter,
The amount of trucks does not matter.
1 truck or 20 trucks, it's $1,800.
Oh, we should.
But I still, but
I know the hazmat captain.
can we get an answer
Sure.
for this? Okay.
Yes, sir. The hazmat captain on scene will get with the excavation crew, and they will get info from them, and they turn that into billing. So potentially, they may have wrote like 2.5 hours or somewhere in there, and potentially they may have wrote 3, you know.
Okay.
I don't know where it goes from there. I know it goes to
Yeah,
the
I
billing department, they get.
Did the math,
sent
I
to
can't
city
remember what it
finance,
was, like
so-
2.77 or something. Yeah.
So $450 discount.
I'm not advocating, by the way, either way, just there were some questions about that, so I just wanted to make it clear that they were in violation of 3 different violations.
Are you done, Councilor Lakin?
Yeah, I think the only other thing to what Jack was saying, so when you were reading it, Roto-Rooter in this case would be liable to ONG, you said to the operator, right? If Roto-Rooter hit ONG's line, didn't you say did somebody just read?
If it was properly marked,
Yeah.
and Roto-Rooter hit it, then they would be liable to ONG for that repair.
Okay.
did we say it wasn't
Properly
properly
marked.
If it was properly marked.
And if,
Yeah, and it seems like
That's
it
what he
was,
said.
so ONG and Roto-Rooter could have a
He said it wasn't.
case unbeknownst to us.
That's what Mr. Riley said, he was still arguing with ONG at the time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't know if he was arguing with them
He
to
said he
get
couldn't get a response.
money
For-
toward him or not have to pay them, but,
I
yeah,
was
that's,
told that it wasn't properly marked, by the way.
He told us that it wasn't.
I don't remember if he said it wasn't properly marked, I just remember that,
I thought he said it wasn't.
thought he
Oh,
did
he was
too.
very, he said it was,
He was pretty
he acted like it was, or at least voiced that it was completely mismarked somehow.
Right.
Which I don't know if that was within the deviation
and is
though
that
of.
another,
That's what
that's
led us to the
another
conversation about
contractor
the
though,
jump
that's
fee.
another
Yeah.
party.
Pay $100.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so then how, I don't know if I wanna get into working on that resolution. I was just really focused in on kind of what information was presented to us and what we had to use in making our determination. And so I think I rendered the right decision based upon the limited amount of information that I had from one side and, you know, the fact that he was, yeah. So I'm becoming more educated though, which is helpful.
Councilor Dr. Wright and
Thank
Councilor
you.
Gilbert.
So Jack read compliance to the guidelines, violation of the compliance to the guidelines, but the guidelines are recommended, not required, right?
That's, I probably misstated that. So I'm pulling up the statute now.
Thank you.
The statute establishes a tolerance zone of 24 inches and provides that the excavator will employ hand-dug test holes to determine the precise location of the underground facilities in advance of the excavation. So that's not framed as a recommendation. That
So hand digging, potholing, whatever it's called, is required.
in the OKI 811 guidance, the guidebook says, be especially careful when digging within the tolerance zone, which is the width of the facility plus 24 inches on both sides. and using the shovel to keep the face of the blade toward the side of the facility. So there's the statutory provision, and then there's the guidance.
Is hand digging literally with your hands, or you can use like hand tools?
Hand shovels.
Okay, so, well,
Soft dig is what they call it.
Man-powered tools.
getting like a little brush out like an
We have 50
archaeologist.
dogs.
And the excavator was 30 inches outside that.
Yeah.
Insert a bone into the ground.
So we also use non-destructive excavation by using a vac truck, and you can take a vacuum, you suck the earth out.
Yeah.
So we use that on.
I mean, I think we all agree, like, had we had all the information, maybe the discussion would have gone differently. I think we are learning some things. I do think as we continue to redevelop the older parts of town, this is gonna be more of an issue than, say, like, the newer parts of town or the ag undeveloped parts of town, potentially. My overall concern ultimately, I'm less concerned, and this is probably gonna sound terrible, I'm less concerned if they cut like an AT&T line, that's inconvenient, but it's not hazmat, right? It's these gas lines and other things that then become like a public safety concern for everyone involved. So I appreciate what Mr. Lichty said, that like, this is not very common, but I wonder, as we start to accelerate on some of these redevelopment opportunities, if they might become more common, and Councilor Bellis just happens like to say it's happening right now, like in her neighborhood, which is one of the more established, denser
Yeah.
infrastructure neighborhoods.
Sounds like trying to get around some tree roots.
Yeah, so I don't know if the potholing piece is where we can, should we codify in our ordinances or something to really like emphasize that sometimes it's in state statute and we bring it forward as an ordinance just to kind of layer in, or if we just think this is something to monitor moving forward. I don't know, and the ONG franchise agreement is up for, it's like in 15 years or something,
It was 25 from
25 years.
2011, I think.
On that night, you
From
said 11 more
2011.
years.
So we have 11 more years, so
I
we can
watched the
like
video earlier
put a
today.
pin in it, and Mr. Alexi can then remember this conversation, remind everyone who's at this table at that time. But for me, it's more like the public risk when it's something like a gas line. And risk to our hazmat team as well, you know, even though they're equipped to do it, doesn't mean it's not risky. So, I don't know what the answer is. When you dig down and you find something, how do you verify if that something is a gas line?
Active, yes.
So if you dig the full distance, the 24 inches, and you have nothing in the way of your elevation of where you're putting your pipe,
Yeah,
it doesn't matter,
You're clear,
right?
sure.
Don't hit anything in that 24 inches, you're not clear. You could still damage a pipe that was mismarked, and we have a
Okay.
plasma issue again, but that liability is not upon you, it is upon.
so how do you verify the thing that you found
Is active or dead.
is an active gas line versus an empty water line, or?
Don't damage it, don't worry about it.
Okay.
Dead gas?
If you don't break it,
What
it
did you
doesn't
say?
matter.
I didn't hear you, your voice.
If you don't damage it, it won't matter, right? If you find a
Right.
pipe, if you don't break
Just
it,
don't touch it.
don't touch it, just keep going, right? And hand dig until you, I mean,
Okay.
some of the telecommunication
Don't
stuff
break
is
it, you
just
don't buy
tied
it.
together.
So I have
You
a
break it.
question. Oh, I'm sorry.
Lake, excuse me, were you done,
I
Councilor
am
Victor?
done, yes.
Councilor Gilbert, then Lake, and then,
I
Jack.
apologize.
Yes, but you're fine.
So I'm just curious, hazmat is part of our emergency response, right?
Yes, ma'am, Tulsa Fire Department has.
Right, so how, remind me, why do we charge for this emergency response?
We charge for that because it's a corporation that has caused this according to state statute, and it's in our city charter.
Oh, so it's in our city charter that we charge for hazmat?
When it's a private
Yes.
corporation?
Oh,
or for-
private corporation, okay.
Well, or when
But-
it's for any, that's a big,
Yeah, who sets the fine?
like, can it happen to a private citizen, or is it, that's a,
No, that's where we need to go to. That's,
yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, of what,
did you ask the car accident question? Remember we talked about?
The analogy.
yes.
Kyle said if somebody is leaving, like a gas station, runs into a gas truck and hazmat comes out,
Who's
is that private
That's-
citizen going to have to
right.
pay $1,800 an hour too?
For that?
No.
Or if they drive off with the gas line still in their car? Do
Whether
they
they're
still
a
have to pay?
citizen or a corporation.
Right, right.
That's never happened to anybody at this table, I'm sure.
It's under
Anyone wanna
exemption two there, so it's it's under exemption 2 in the city charter, or under 404 exemption section.
Okay.
And it's number 2 in that, and number 3 both already answer those questions. Number 2 is about individual use of legal hazmat. So legal hazmat would be you purchase gasoline, you're legal, or you went to a store and bought some pesticides that are in the proper container with the proper storage, and you're driving home and get in a wreck and those pesticides spill, we will not actually charge you for that.
Okay.
Now, if you are a pesticide company and you're going to a company and buying stuff and you're transporting it and you spill it, that's a different ballgame. But
Okay.
if you're a sole individual, no, we don't do that. And then also powered vehicles, so we don't charge for any cleanup for like oil or gasoline or diesel fuel or things like that, because in the city charter it explains that's exemption number 3, that it is what powers the vehicle, so that's kind of normal standard.
So that would be
operating
same with for an electric car that just blows up or whatever? This is just hypothetical.
Sure.
Okay.
So if a gas truck is traveling down the highway in a wreck and spills over the highway,
So if they spill that, we would bill for that, because they're a business now. They're not a
Okay,
sole
right.
individual.
Okay.
Now, if a gas truck was going down the road and a rock or a stick came up and broke their saddle tank,
Yeah.
there was a little bit of diesel on the ground,
Yeah.
that's understandable, that powers the engine, we want to get you back, on the road, paying taxes again and so on and so forth, we'll clean that up and we just eat that.
okay. Yeah,
Okay, Lakin?
thank you for that
and then-
clarification.
Yes, ma'am, you're welcome.
Darn, I forgot what I was gonna ask. It was a really fascinating question now.
It'll come back to you.
I do, so on the $1,800, who does set that fee? Do we have to approve it? Is it something set by ordinance?
Set by ordinance.
Okay.
It's in section 400. Title 13 is the fire department, chapter 4, and it's in 403, I believe. It actually says, under B, number 1, for response at a hazardous materials incident, when the response team expends resources to mitigate an incident, the rate shall be $1,800 per hour or any portion thereof.
Okay. I do remember my question. So on this, no, on this 24-inch deal. So I'm still, okay, so I get to that yellow line, I see the yellow line, I dig this way, do I have to
12.
dig this way 12 and this way 12? Do I have to dig this way 12?
No, that goes from heaven to the
Just to the
center of
line?
earth, to the, all the way down. So if you're burying something 12 feet deep, you gotta hand dig 12 feet deep, basically, right? But,
Oh, I know.
but if
So-
you're putting a sewer line, or if you,
Hang on, let me ask you a different way.
Sure.
So I get to the yellow line, I dig this way, but what I think I've located is really dead. So long as I've dug 12 inches this way and this way, I'm okay, but then I go in and I put my deal in and it's 2 feet down, because I only,
so,
yeah, help me.
sure. So you have, I don't know how to draw this.
I know.
This is paint on the
I was
ground,
like really
right?
hoping for you.
And so you have 12 inches this way, 12 inches that way, and that goes as deep as you have to go to get to where you need to put your pipe. So, but if you're over here and that gas line happens to be over here and you put your shovel in the ground and you're outside that 12 inches, yeah, then the liability is not on you. But you have,
What if it's right here?
it's inside the window. This
Oh, yeah,
this
yeah,
goes
okay.
all the way to the center of the earth to heaven.
To China.
Yeah.
And it's 24 inches from the center of that pipe. So if you had a 1-foot pipe, they would go to the center of that, and they would go 24 inches out this way, 24
Oh,
inches
24
this way.
inches on either side.
That's 24.
Oh,
Yeah, I thought, yeah,
It's not
I thought it was
48,
24.
48.
Yeah.
Off the 12 that's
Because
existing.
24 here, 24 here, total 48.
So it's 4 total feet.
Well, it could be 5.
Could be
The
5.
pipe.
Because you have a.
If you're right in the center of the pipe and it was a foot, it could be 5.
If it's AT&T, it could be 10.
Or yeah, they have 36 inch.
They have these huge duct packs, they just paint marks in the ground this wide, and you gotta go 2 feet outside of those marks.
Right.
But he was digging with an expired locate ticket, and he was outside the 24 inches on the pipe, not pothole according to state statute, and he used the mechanized equipment that actually ripped the gas pipe. That's where he was.
Well, that would have been good information to have.
Yeah.
I don't think we heard.
Next time we'll
Maybe
know.
we've heard of one of those
Yeah.
elements, but
Yeah.
not all of them.
All right, for those who
I thought that was in with, city legal's opinion and what because he has an email that, or I believe he admitted in there that he spoke with me and then I talked with O&G and that he was at fault and that we would continue to bill.
You waffle.
I would just say, going back to our earlier request, the more of this detail in a memo that goes with backup, the better, because then if somebody can't be
It's
there,
not
we
going
at
based
least
on
have
his testimony.
what's already documented.
Plus a lot of it is just oral arguments,
Yeah.
Right.
What do you
and,
say?
and responding to our questions.
Falsifier will do better.
Well, it's not just you. It's just-
Yeah.
Especially on these legal matters.
Yeah.
Or, sorry.
So we'll work on it. No big deal.
Yeah.
Are you done, Lathan?
Yes, ma'am.
Counselor Dutton, and then Counselor Bingle.
So it's 75% of that 1,800, that's how they came up with that number. So it was like 2.75 hours.
Oh, yeah, I know, that's what
Yeah.
the math shows, but it
Right.
doesn't.
Not on the invoice.
It doesn't
Well-
break it down.
It doesn't,
Right.
But what he read said, "and any portion thereof," or something
Right.
like that, so.
But my question
Attorney can
was,
tell us
is
what
there
that
a standard depth that they go in?
No, he just said like to the
Well,
center of
that's-
the earth. To the center of the earth.
But I'm
don't.
just wondering though, if there's consideration to like a flood zone or underneath the creek bed. I mean, there's got to be some sort of
right, so the-
regulation for
yes,
the depth
there
of
there is.
the
fran-
diameter of a pipe.
The franchise agreement for O&G and in the right of occupancy permit says that if you're below the street, it has to be 48 inches deep.
Okay.
And that's enable us to go back at a later date and not have to do relocates on them and slow down our capital program. Behind the curb, I think it has to be 3 feet deep.
Okay.
So, but it can be deeper than that. It's Something
Right.
says it can't be 12 feet deep, right? Telecommunication companies that come through town that don't ever want to come back to town, they'll be extremely deep because they know nobody will bother them. So they'll just bore down there and stay down there with the understanding they're never going to touch that pipe again. If it breaks, they're going to come back in and bore it again. But it's
Right,
open
so if you
conduit
hit
pool.
a dead pipe at 3 feet, but there's a live pipe at 5 feet, then,
Right, so if you, if the.
Aim for the
if the-
middle.
Well, no, well, yeah, aim for the middle, but if the plumber's coming in and his grade says that the pipe, his pipe has to be 4.5 feet below grade,
right,
then
okay.
he needs to hand dig that 2-foot window, 4.5 feet deep plus the depth of his pipe, so say
Okay.
5 feet. And then he knows he's good, and he can go
Yeah.
back to his mechanical use and do what he needs to do. It's not easy, but
Yeah.
it's the nature of what it is.
Also, if a company hits an abandoned pipe, the likelihood that there's anything in that abandoned pipe, you would just go on, because it wouldn't be leaking.
Just treat it like there's something in there.
You didn't bust
That's
it.
what Mr.
Yeah,
Lichty said.
you just act like you have
Don't
something
break
in
it,
it, don't
you
break
don't
it.
have to buy it.
You don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
Break you buy. Were you done, Counselor?
Yeah, sorry.
Counselor Bingle?
So I want to ask one more. You said something about, because this kind of piggybacks off of what you just, yeah, I said piggytail, instead of piggyback. So the question I have is, you mentioned about legal creation of an incident. So if you were gassing up your car and you created that type of hazardous material release, let's flip the script here and let's say you're at home and you decide to do a project, you don't have a permit, you didn't get all the dig, are they subject to those same fines?
Yes.
Okay,
Under C, in the city charter, none of these exemptions apply if the hazardous material incident is caused by an act which would constitute a felony.
okay. So basically,
So if they're doing terrorism
if you're
or
doing
something
something
like that-
at home as a citizen in
Yeah.
your yard, in the right of way, and you cause a hazardous material
If
release,
you don't get a permit,
and you don't have a permit,
that's a
If
felony.
it's
Or
a-
you
if
had it
was-
marked.
If it was a felony, I mean,
Right.
if they spill some gasoline out of their lawnmower in their front yard and they call for the Tulsa Fire Department, we're not gonna go for it.
yeah, I'm not talking about that, but I'm talking
No.
about if they had
Like
created
weekend
the
warriors.
same hazardous release as Roto-Rooter did in the discussion that we're
Oh, yeah,
having.
citizens have to call 811.
So, I think.
No, you're saying they have to, but there are people
But if
that
they
do
don't?
work without permits or
Of
without
course.
calling Oki. So my question is if they did that, if they dug and created a hazardous material release, would they be under the same fine?
I believe they would if they were like building a fence, is what you're saying,
Right.
and they do not call 811.
Right.
and they hit a gas line,
Right.
okay, ONG is gonna come and repair that gas line, they're going to bill them, we would be there, we would bill for that. Because under
Okay.
state statute, now, they have caused
Yeah,
that.
so I
It's the
thought it
same
was
rate.
interesting you
Different
brought that up, but that should be the warning, is don't be digging in the right of way without.
Yeah, and 811 does obviously
Yeah.
an extremely good job of messaging, and they're very clear about that. Points to state statute.
That's what I'm saying, like, you know.
Just
trying to
We
stay
could
cover-
get some
stay
fines and fees
17
from the
feet off the
Lakin
fence.
residents, it
You
sounds
shouldn't
like.
find anything.
Yeah, there's stuff that just needs to be
It's a
identified.
plain
It takes 2 seconds to call 811.
And like 12 weeks for them to get out there.
Okay.
No, I
But
know.
ONG would probably
It's gonna
clamp
remind-
that situation so fast, because it would be a residential line.
Right.
They'd probably clamp it so fast that we wouldn't know anyway.
But I was curious, so we need to create that clarity for people that are actually doing stuff.
I see
That
a video coming on. with
handyman like
Andrea.
Phil Lakin
Friday,
here.
yes, sir.
Yeah, we can make it in my yard.
We'll do it at Phil's house.
Here's
We
my
should
yard.
also add, like, you're not supposed to turn off your own water meters, remember that
I know
discussion?
why
I
the
know.
electricity went out.
I don't remember anything about water.
We can have a whole discussion
About what people get up to.
about pattern
yeah.
and practice. Yeah.
So I appreciate that, because I think that
So
definitely
much
needs
that
to
could be
be
said right now.
an education piece about doing that kind of work.
Any other questions or comments?
Thank
Counselor
you.
Archie?
I'll call an Oklahoma natural gas rep and get you guys that answer 100% if you guys wanna know. That's the way I believe.
Yeah, because if the
Like to
potential
know.
is there for a commercial business, the potential is obviously there for a resident.
Yep.
Counselor Archie?
So the lessons we learned today, besides this math problem
There you go.
of how
You
to
have
dig,
the
is
script
call
on all.
811.
Except unless you're council
When you call 811, is it like within 48 hours? So 48 hours before you start digging around in your backyard. Don't watch HGTV and get excited about trying to solve
You know how those things.
Call on Wednesday for the weekend.
Yeah.
Work.
Okay, Counselor Archie, so to wrap it up?
Yes.
Oh.
Y'all are ready to go, but y'all just talking. Question for Sarah. I have a question about the fee. It's, and you correct me if I'm wrong, it's my understanding fines and fees at the city can't be excessive. They have to cover the cost of, what it actually costs to do the work. So the question would be, does it cost $1,800 an hour to provide the services, or how is that determined?
That's probably
Okay.
You're talking salaries, you're talking fuel, you're talking the actual wear and tear on an apparatus, you're talking monitoring equipment.
Materials.
You're talking, having to get, and the hours come in when we're knocking on doors and asking you, saying, we don't know where this gas is radiating underneath the ground. So we're gonna knock on your door, if you'll invite us in, we're gonna come in and make sure that your family is safe as well by monitoring the atmosphere in there. So, yeah, I mean, if you look around the country, 1,800 is pretty low.
Yeah, they're putting their lives at risk, so I would say 1,800 is pretty.
And we're protecting ONG while they're in there, because they're the ones fixing the actual issue.
All right.
We're there to make sure they're safe.
Understood. Understood.
All right, any other questions or comments? All right, we're adjourned.
Thank you.